Good morning, everyone. Welcome to yoga. You made it. Well done. Hope you're all okay. I'm just, as usual, larking around a bit with the double screens just to make sure everything's all good. Looks like it's all good. As usual, if you've got any problems, put them down in the chat and we'll proceed with the class. You can all hear me. Just do a thumbs up if you can. Great. Okay, let's start. Thanks again for joining me. And happy Easter. We're going to start with a little bit of chanting, and I recommend Vajrasana. Sorry, I don't. I recommend Siddhasana for this posture. So Siddhasana is where you place the heels aligned with each other and with the midline of the body. That's the preferred position, but you can sit in other positions if they're more comfortable for you. The important thing is that your spine is upright, chest is lifted, attention is inward, breathing is nasal, shoulders are down, forehead is soft, inner corners of the eyes spacious, outer corners of the eyes spacious. We're going to chant, lead me from untruth to truth, lead me from darkness to light, lead me from that which is perishable to that which is imperishable. We're going to do it in Sanskrit, or Sanskritam Bhasha, as it's called in Sanskrit. And we'll do it in call and response. In other words, I'll say a line and you just say it back. So remember what you're saying is, lead me from untruth to truth, lead me from darkness to light, and lead me from that which is perishable to that which is imperishable. Bring your hands to your heart, give them a little rub together. Nestle the hands into the heart center chakra, the anahata. And call and response, I say a line and you just do your best to say it back. Great thing is that you're muted, so you can't really go wrong because no one can hear you except yourself. As long as your intention is lead me from untruth to truth, lead me from darkness to light, lead me from that which is impermanent, that which is perishable, that which is changeable, to that which is permanent, nitya in Sanskritam, lasting, stable, secure. Asatoma sat gamaya, asatoma sat gamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, mrityoma amratam gamaya, mrityoma amratam gamaya, asatoma sat gamaya, asatoma sat gamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, mrityoma amratam gamaya, mrityoma amratam gamaya, asatoma sat gamaya, asatoma sat gamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, tamasoma jyotir gamaya, mrityoma amritam gamaya, mrityoma amritam gamaya. Together, Om. And then a deep breath in with a deep breath out, maybe like a sigh. Maybe a few of those. We're going to do one nod to True Core, to the part of True Core where we breathe in to where the three channels co-terminate, and that could be a variety of different places in different traditions. It could be at the heart center, could be at the pelvic floor. We're going to imagine it at the pelvic floor, so we're going to breathe in, not yet, but in a minute, down to the pelvic floor where we imagine three channels, a central channel and the left and right channel co-terminate, and then we're going to hold our breath, Anantara Kumbhaka. Whilst we hold our breath, we'll do this. Okay, that's whilst we hold our breath. So I've reduced it to 2 of these instead of 5 of these, which is what we do in the traditional practice. So get ready to hold your breath for a few moments. Inhale deeply. At the end, exhale. And sit for a moment in the sense of Jnana Vayu, the all-pervading wind, as it's called, or energy, which of course intimates a sense of flow within your body, energetic flow. We're going to do that same thing twice more. So when you're ready, inhale deeply. Again, imagine the all-pervading wind or energy, Vayu in Sanskrit, Lung in Tibetan. So just imagine everywhere, whether it be your feet or your back, your shoulders, or your forehead or your temples, everywhere, crown of the head, buttocks, tingling, energy, life. One last time of the same practice, ready to inhale. And just deep breaths, natural deep breaths. But sense energy or imagine energy. Feel energy, tingling, life, back, front, body, sides of the body, inside and outside of the body, around the body. Ordinarily, we'd practice the whole 5 practices and then we'd sit on with our meditation, but we're going to fold our legs back to Virasana. You need to be sitting on a block, maybe 2 blocks. Here, the inner ankles are a little bit wider than the outer hips. The inner ankles are a little bit, just to the outside of the outer hips. If you need to, you can flatten with 3 fingers your calves by placing 3 fingers on each calf and drawing backwards but not out as you sit back down if you want that extra adjustment. And then I always like a little buttock adjustment, just drawing the buttock flesh out and back, so that hopefully you can get yourself positioned so that your block is supporting the buttocks but not under your thighs. And when you're ready, stretch your arms diagonally down, fingers interlace. Sense and experience the trapezius area, neck, upper back, middle back. Raise the arms up. You know that when you get about 3/4 of the way up, that you can adjust your head position in 2 senses. That is, attitudinally speaking, but also in space-time, you can adjust your head position. so that there's a sense of flow. Right, so maybe you'll move side to side. I don't know. You don't know. I don't know. It just happens that whatever you do is being done in the service, seva, of flow, vahi. Right? A sense of fluidity, of not getting caught up, of being free of the grantis, nigranti, of the knots, of the ties, of the binds, of the attachments, of the habituations, of the repetitions, of the compulsions, free of those grantis, those knots, by serving flow. Take a big wide circle. Well done. Hands to heart. Deep breaths. Placing in the heart center the bija mantra Hum. It's spelled in transliterated Sanskrit as H-U-M. The H is regular H, the U has a straight line across the top, and the M has a dot underneath it. That means in this context it's a pure nasal, which sounds more like, if you were to write it phonetically, as if you were written H-U-N-G, Hum. So we're going to imagine the heart center as blue. We're going to imagine a white Hum in the center of the heart. We're going to place it by chanting that for the length of one long exhale when we're ready. So take a deep breath in first. Imagine you place that. Sometimes it's nice to imagine it's sat on a lotus flower in the heart. Hum, hum, hum. Release your hands and come out of Virasana and place whatever equipment you have just to one side. Bring your hands then forwards of your hips and catch a breath or two. Perhaps you'll wag your tail, breathing through the nose. You're also readying, as you might have guessed, for Adho Mukha Svanasana, which you can pop up into whenever you like. I think it's nice to remember that some texts, the Hatha Abhyasa Padati, call this pose not dog pose, but elephant pose. And if you've ever seen an elephant, you'll see how sort of sensitive and awake they seem to be through their feet. You seem to be fully aware, super sensitive. Your feet, of course, are your hands and your feet in this pose. So sensitize your hands by patting them and or moving your pelvis side to side, but sensitize your hands. Wake them up, in other words, by padding them or by moving your pelvis left and right. Not only are we sensitizing our hands, we're deepening our contact, and we're also moving energy through, moving life force, moving vayu, moving lung, whatever you want to call it, through the lower back, opening up inner and outer armpit. There's a lot more we could say, but I think that's enough for us to feel into this. Okay, well done. Coming back to your hands and knees where you can catch a breath, shake out your pelvis, take a few deep breaths. Now we're going to move the energy channels, melt them around, as it were, the central channel, by taking one arm through and underneath palm up and coming down low. This is called Suchirandrasana. It's one of two poses that have that name. The other arm extends out in front of you. And if you can imagine, if you like, that there are two channels, either side of a central channel. And that as we move like this, the channels kind of mesh and move around the central channel. It's like massaging them, which helps to massage out any habituation in those channels so that those channels can flow without us getting stuck. And thereby we naturally abide and fall into the central channel. Now bring your hand back and push back to hands and knees and catch your breath. And again, a little shimmy, a little shake. And similarly, turning the other way, I'll turn around, but you don't need to because I just want to see you because It's nice company, but you can do it from where you are. Obviously, you're welcome to turn around too if you want. Palm up of the other arm extended out, and breathing through the nose. The muscle that caps the shoulder is called the deltoid because it looks like the Greek letter delta. And that gives a really interesting meditative, that is absorbing stretch. And again, sensing the three channels, and perhaps you can feel how they're a little sort of stretched and twisted in a good way, like a sort of massage. And in the same way that massage pushes fluid out, and then it comes back in higher quantities. In the same way, we're pushing out of our normal habituated pathways the fluid, that is the vayu, that is the vital energy, fluid being a metaphor here for vital energy. And then it flows back in, breaking down granthis and causing flow within the two channels, the Ida and Pingala, that allows us to alight in the center. Coming up, when you're ready, back to hands and knees, and perhaps there'll be a little bit more shimmying and shifting. When ready, if you've got the camera set up like I have, that is to say, the camera's to the side of me, take the foot that's closest to the camera forwards first. But if you haven't got it set up like that, it's no problem. Just do either foot. Then move back and forth with a clear intention, again, to sort of massage, to push fluid out and then let it flow back into various areas like the hip. And also to reposition. So you can also lift your back knee and replace it. The bursa in the knee, the fluid-filled sacs in the knee, are very sensitive. We have a variety of different amounts. Some people have more, some people have less bursa, I'm told by a doctor friend of mine, Dr. Leah Desmond. So you can keep lifting and placing until your back knee is placed behind the groin, so the thigh is sloping. And then with the same hand as the bent leg, push into the bent leg. Thumb facing in, fingers facing out, push and turn. If you've got the screen set up like mine, you'll be turning towards the screen. Otherwise, either way. And then my recommendation is play, lila, backwards, forwards. Again, we know we're massaging, we're creating what's called glide. We're beginning to melt some extraneous fascia. You don't have to turn very far at all at this point of the morning. But you might find after a while, there is a little bit more space, in which case you press your hand down and turn a little further. We don't force the issue, but we just see if the door is open. We try and encourage the door to open by oiling the hinges, as it were. That means moving backwards and forwards. So you could do this quite a lot. I recommend quite a lot. And every so often the intestinal area will come round. Hopefully you haven't just eaten an enormous breakfast, cooked breakfast, fried toast, and the rest. Hopefully your belly's not too full. Okay, now release. So we're keeping that relatively on the low. It's not what you might describe as a full posture. Again, a little shimmying and shaking and moving. I'm going to turn around 180 degrees, but you don't have to do that. The only reason I'm doing it is to still see you. Other foot forwards. And then back knee again can be lifted and replaced as you move backwards and forwards to hydrate and melt myofascia. The back knee, we want to land it for two functions. One is the placement of the bursa, so it feels more comfortable for us, and also so that the knee is indeed behind the pelvis, so you do have a slope on the back leg to increase the stretch in the psoas. When ready, your hand, the same hand as the front bent leg, on the front bent leg, the thumb faces in, the fingers face out, and if ready, push, lift, and turn. Doesn't have to be much, and you can hydrate the various tissues even more by moving backwards and forwards. You might find, after a while, you might not, you might find there's a bit more room to turn. If there is, then you can begin to migrate your hand higher up. So it might start mid-thigh, and it might move 3/4 of the way up towards the pelvis after a while. It might even, in some cases, not that it's better to do it, but it might even move up towards the groin. And the idea is that we're stretching small amounts at a time, so we're not overloading the amount of stretch that we're doing. So the hand can migrate up, but doesn't have to. few more breaths, keeping it fairly simple, and then release, return, catch your breath, shake out your pelvis, breathe through the nose, jaw soft, eyes soft, throat soft. Bring your hands together so your thumbs physically touch along their entire length, which means turning your fingers outwardly so your hand looks like a rising sun, a beautiful rising sun. So spread the fingers and place the thumbs together like that. And you can feel the 7 bones that make up the carpal tunnels. And then lift up with your feet generously placed, quite wide. So I like to go really wide with this up to mat width or even slightly beyond. So I end up with half my foot on and half my foot off. Now this really wakes up those 7 bones. There's actually an 8th one, but it's not part of the structure of the tunnel. And so you can feel there are several bones that as you move left and right, you can wake up to. And what we want is balance, equality, not just in our bones, but in the world, of course, not just in the world, but in our bones. So look for that balance and equality. Strive for that in your body first, right? In the body first, because the body is a microcosm of the entire universe. Breathing through the nose, you might move left and right. You can bring your head through your arms if you want. And of course, some people have said to me in the past they can't do that because their head's too big, but don't forget you have bending elbows. So you can, my head just got through and it's not particularly small. So you should be able to get it through as well. Balancing. Okay, keep that sense of balance and equality as you come slowly out. Full awareness is the key of these kind of postures, and then slowly turn the hands slowly back to their regular position. Spread the fingers, breathe a bit, stabilize the bones, which is a meditation. It's not something you learn like you learn A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You know, it's a meditation. It's something you learn like hugging or dancing or kissing or anything, you know, where you give to a sense of flow. Now, advance your knees towards your wrists and turn your wrists the other way around. Turn your fingers towards your thighs. Then we're going to breathe around those carpal bones, or the bones at the back of the hand before the metacarpals, the longer bones of the hands, before the phalanges, the fingers. And just circling or moving in a way that's not contrived, it's more given. More of the requirement of dancing or singing or hugging or, you know, communing with nature or giving to the feeling of the sun on your face at this time of year. You know, it's a sort of precious feeling in the UK when the sun's out at this time of year. You can increase the stretch if required, or if spontaneously you feel like that, by taking the knees back. But it's not necessarily necessary, but you might find it useful. I'm still moving around, massaging around those carpal bones. Breathing should be honest. Now I could do that for a while. I find it quite pleasant, but not everyone does find it as pleasant. And unfortunately for some of us, the next pose isn't pleasant either. Tucking your toes under, peeling the hands up slowly, perhaps one at a time. And I do emphasize slowly. When we come to the high heel kneeling position, some people are completely indifferent to this. They're like totally fine. And a lot of people find it really hard, really unpleasant. So apologies if it's really difficult for you. We won't stay long, just long enough to interlace the fingers, stretch the arms diagonally, and raise the arms up, toning the tummy more as the arms go backwards. So that the energy from the lower back going forwards is met by the energy from the tummy going backwards. And the two energies meeting, as it were, in the middle, means that there's an energy that goes up the middle, up through the anterior spine that you can nudge and encourage and through movement of a variety of kinds. Now, release your arms, because I know for some people this is horrible, and we'll come up to a lifted heel squat. A lifted heel squat. So you're squatting, but your heels are up. And you're breathing easy. It's a little bit sort of, you know, tricky to balance for many of us. Take a breath or two, jaw soft, All of these movements are great for hydrating the plantar fascia. That gives a sense of flow more generally. Then we're going to lift the bum and bring the heels down with the body forwards and raise the arms up with the ribs on the thighs. And then moving perhaps up, down, left, right. We're stretching, we're hydrating the thoracolumbar fascia. That's just a sort of clever dick way of saying the tissue on the lower back and the middle back. Arms forwards and up, Utkatasana. Now, some of you have in the past enjoyed moving this more intuitively, so I do recommend that if you find that more meditative, such as turning the heels of the hands out, such as bending, extending legs and or arms. Remember, the purpose of the postures is not the postures themselves, most of which that we practice today are not in any yoga text, not mentioned, not illustrated, just not there. The purpose is absorption. That's in all yoga texts. Standing up, take a big wide circle, hands to the heart, catch a breath, and step your feet generously apart. Breathing through the nose, jaw soft, eyes soft. Hopefully your heart rate's gone up a little bit, which is good. Now find, identify and feel the pelvic floor. So you might have to half close or close your eyes perhaps. And you certainly, I imagine anyway, will need to move your pelvis to feel into the living reality of what the pelvic floor is, rather than the sort of label. The label is like a map. A map is not the territory. You can have a treasure map, but there's no treasure in the map. It's in the territory, right? So similarly, the pelvic floor is not the title pelvic floor. It's not a visual image even of the pelvic floor that you might have from an anatomy book, but it's the living experience. So that's what we're tuning in on. It takes some courage, because many of us imagine that we're safer if we imagine our lives than if we walk around with our eyes wide open. That's a very common, and if you think about it, almost funny situation. Stretch the arms, turn the palms, raise the arms, light tone in the tummy. And again, I'm going to emphasize for us all, tuning in and taking the courage to tune in on the living experience of the pelvic floor. I'm still moving to stay attuned to it. I, like you, have a host of samskaras ready to arrest my attention. Volitional tendencies, likes and dislikes, fears and anxieties, cravings and aversions. But I'm tuning into this, capital THIS. Now we're going to turn. You choose which direction, it won't matter, because we're going to do both by turning the back toes in, front foot and leg out, whole body turns to whichever direction you've chosen. Walk your front foot further across the width of the mat, lift the back heel and externally rotate it before bringing it down. We're about hip width apart, but across the width of the mat, the tummy is lightly toned. So repeated, light tone in the tummy. Find the pelvic floor, release the roots of the neck. Inhale, raise from your hip joints to your fingers. Exhale, bend your front knee and focus on your inner groin of the back leg, the inner groin, top of the inner thigh. So we come back to our well-known now Vajrasati yoga paradigm, Lila Atha Lakshana. Play starts with Lila, play, for the purpose of absorption. So it's not any old play, it's play that's specifically purposed for a sense of absorption, so play in any way that's absorbing. And then Lakshana, look for the signs of absorption, you begin to disappear. The heel can stay up or come back down or come back up after being down, but we're teasing tissues around, almost fiber by fiber, for Virabhadrasana, number one. Inhaling, coming up, pelvic floor in awareness, turn back to center, level up the feet, hands to the hips, catch your breath, tune in on the pelvic floor. It's an act of courage, which is why so many of the deities hold Abhaya Mudra. Originally started with the Buddha, with this very famous story about the Buddha calming down a wild, angry bull elephant. Stretch the arms again, turn the palms again, raise up. Still tune in on the pelvic floor, sort of insist on it. Despite or in spite of any subtle resistance, persist, remind, encourage. All it is better to be awake to the way things are than to construct stories about how things are and project them onto reality, because reality will still be what it is. It still won't accord with your story. It's better to be awake. Back toes in, front foot and leg out. Walk the front foot further across the width of the mat. Lift back heel, externally rotate it, and then again bring it down again. Light tone in the tummy. Reiterate it. Light tone in the tummy. Finding the pelvic floor. Inhale, raise from the hips to the fingers. Exhale, bend your front knee. Tease. This is the playing part, the lila. Teasing through movement, like lifting the back heel, even lifting the little toe side of the back foot. So for moments at a time, you might be exclusively balanced on the ball of the foot, on the big toe side only. For moments at a time, you could use that to tease the tissues of the inner groin. In other words, that insertion of the psoas. And working fiber by fiber by fiber, which we know will get us a lot further than trying to do everything in one big lump that will only cause us a sense of restriction that we don't have if we work fiber by fiber by fiber. Inhaling, coming back up, well done. Centering back up, bring your arms down to your hips, hands on the hips, breathing through your nose. Deep breaths. I hope that's evoked some deep breathing. So deep breaths, jaw soft. We are going to forward fold. If you know that you're better off using a block on the floor in front of you, better off in the sense that you can keep this whole area from here to here open, just as it is like now. This area doesn't close at all. So how are you going to move? If this area stays exactly as open as it is now, you've got to hinge from the hip joints. Turn your toes in. Turn your toes in just a little bit and extend the little toe side of each foot. I like to sort of jostle the feet quite a bit. Jostling is a way of unpicking myself from the various and multitudinous habits that exist in my nervous system, and I suspect also you have in yours. So I have to jostle to feel into the living tissue. So I move my ankles and I feel. Maybe you could be doing this too if you want. Feel the balance going through your feet so that you're not rolling to the outer ankles. It takes a lot of repetition. I've been doing yoga very regularly, as some of you know, and some of you have been doing it very regularly with me for decades. Thank you for your time. And I'm not there, it's not, you don't get there. Each time is a new tuning in. Stretch up from the inner groins on the inhale. Exhale, keep the inner groins open, hinge from the top of the thighs. And fingertips to your block or your floor. Of course, this is Prasarita Padottanasana Ekam. Prasarita means spread out. Padottanasana is pada, which is foot, plus ut, which is intense, plus tan, which is stretch, plus asana, which shouldn't be there because it means seat. It's a sort of historical accident, a sort of historical confusion. But there it is. We're left with this suffix asana on the end of poses these days. Now, you can adjust your feet while you're on your fingertips. Perhaps you're on a block. Adjust your feet to balance. Remember, balance starts here on the microcosm. Prioritizing it here means you will naturally care for it everywhere, naturally. The balance between inner and outer ankle. Most people tend to push too much to the outer ankle and make it feel hot. Because you're overstretching, if that's the case, the common peroneal nerve. So adjusting and readjusting, and I think it's lovely. And what happens to your feet happens further up the legs. Inner groins open, outer hips deep, back groins, that is to say the gluteal fold, deep. The front groins also deep. Now, in some cases, not most, the lower back is dipping down, which it should, and that's great, and we shouldn't change that. We want that. In fact, if it's not doing that yet, you might want to be higher up on your fingers or on a block. But if it is dipping and it continues to dip, in other words, your hamstrings are continuing to release the sitting bones upwardly. If you keep your chest up as well as the sitting bones up, your lower back will dip in a way too much, and you'll feel the tissues between the lumbar and the pelvis squashed, and it feels better to go lower, better, it feels more like flow. Well, then you're welcome to do that. It's not better in terms of your yoga. It could be worse if you're not doing it from the right motivations and if you're not keeping the spine anteriorly open. Jaw soft, eyes soft, balance, balance, balance between inner and outer ankle. Breathing through the nose. Inner groins lifted, outer hips deep. Coming back to fingertips, if you did go lower, and then walk your feet a little closer before coming to your highest possible place on your fingertips, on your blocks, and then calmly coming up, pressing through the heels. Well done. Walk your feet towards each other and shake or shimmy out a little bit. You can shake or shimmy out. There's a variety of things. You can even do a little buttock kicking. This is the pose. It's a homage to the pose Harinasana, which we find in the Hatha Abhyasa Padati, which is actually done with both feet simultaneously. But I'm not going to recommend that to you, because, well, it's early in the morning and anything can happen. And I'm not there to sort you out. So if anything happens. So just kick your bum with one foot at a time. This is called the deer pose in the Hatha Abhyasa Padati. And it's a good feeling. And once you've stretched out like that and shimmied out like that, come to the middle of your mat. Bring your feet into Tadasana. Have space behind and in front. Sorry, I should do that the other way. Behind and in front. And then raise your arms up. Roots of the neck soft, tummy lightly toned, purposed for this drawing up of the front of the pelvis, which of course draws down the back of the pelvis, which keeps length in the lumbar. We want a lumbar curve, of course we do. A lack of lumbar curve through such problems as tight hamstrings causes back problems, usually, including disc bulging problems and SI problems. So having flexible hamstrings and making sure there is some lumbar curve is very, very important. Take one leg back onto your toe tips. Keep that tone in your tummy. Inhale, raise energy up to your hip. Exhale, hinge. You can lift your foot just a little bit. However far you lift your foot, that far your fingers go down. Doesn't have to be much at all. Could be more, but more isn't equated in yoga with better, of course not. That's more of a sort of capitalist paradigm, isn't it? Where you think more, bigger house, better, more money, better, more friends on social media, better. And it's not actually true, Having enough, of course, is absolutely necessary. But more than enough isn't necessary. So you have enough. Right? So breathing, jaw soft. Okay, come on up. Big wide circle, hands to the heart. Take a deep breath. In yoga, enough means enough sensation to challenge samskaras and to purify the samskaras. In other words, to encourage them to release. So the body becomes nadishodhana, purified. Raise your arms, take your other foot behind you, tone that tummy in repeated ways. Make sure energy flows. We started with Vyana Vayu, energy flowing everywhere. And then when you take your foot back, eventually it will come up. How far it comes up doesn't matter. Could be a little, could be a bit more. It's relative to the torso going down and the arms going down. And the yogin is always responding to her experience as she finds it, as he finds it, as they find it. The gluteus maximus on the top leg we don't want the fibers of that gluteus maximus to be externally rotating the thigh. So keep the little toe side of the top leg foot down, as if there's a little drawdown, like a little weight hanging off the little toe. Okay, inhale. Come on up. Big circle, hands to heart. Catch a deep breath, or two, or three, or four. Release your hands. And we're going to use, if you've got one, a brick block. If you haven't, you can use a book. If you haven't got a book, you should get some books. They're very good in your home. But also you can use whatever. You can use a tea caddy. You can use a kilner jar. You can use a tin of baked beans. Perhaps organic if you have enough money. That kind of thing. Anyway, that brick is going to be placed onto the outside of your right foot. And if you've got the screen set up like me, make sure that you're set up so that your right foot is the one that's closest to the screen. So you might need to be the other way. I don't know which way around you are. The other foot steps back, and you're up to, but not beyond, hip width, and certainly more across the width of the mat than heel to heel. Focus on your inner groin of your back leg. You can even bring your hand to it. You can reach just to sort of wake it up by touching it or patting it. And then once you've got that awareness of it, breathe calmly and feel there's a meditative, that is a psychophysical absorption into a release upwards, a psychophysical upwards release of that groin, and raise up the opposite hand to the leg you've got forwards. Lightly tone the tummy, the other arm is down. Breathing through your nose, your neck is soft. Inhale, raise up strongly through your fingers. Exhale, extend forwards, extend out of the inner groin of the back leg and start rotating round. This is where you use your block, your hand, whatever height you want it. And your other hand goes on your sacrum, the bony plate between the buttocks. Don't grip the back leg gluteus maximus, let it go. And extend the bottom ribs as a meditation. Remember, as a meditation means as something that you're absorbed in. Extend the bottom ribs as something you're absorbed in. There's this profound listening, responding. Some people find it useful to occasionally bend the back knee. It can help release the gluteus maximus on the back leg buttock side. This, of course, is Parivrtta, evolved Trikonasana, three-angle pose, three-angle seat. Again, that's the mistake of history that we call it asana. Okay, inhale, come on up, swap round so your other foot is forwards and the block is ready for it. If you're finding it really tough to reach the block, obviously you can have it in any height. You can try it on the big toe side instead of the little toe side. That can make life a little easier. Make sure your stride is wide enough. That makes a really big difference, actually, having your stride wide enough, that is across the width of the mat. Not too wide because you lose height. Wide enough means up to hip width. And for most of us, it should probably be hip width. So check that. Tone your tummy, light tone in the tummy, breathing through the nose. Raise the opposite arm to your front leg. You got it. The opposite arm to your front leg goes up. So if it's your right leg forwards, it's your left arm up. If it's your left leg forwards, it's your right arm up. In, out, shake it all about. Sorry, that was just nothing to do with it. Inhale, exhale, come forwards. From the inner groin of the back leg, imagine that you're releasing from that inner groin of the back leg. Of course, this is intestinal tissue, as well as other tissue that you're turning, reproductive organ tissue. And so it's something you can really feel into. You can draw in and pull forwards sometimes when it feels absorbing to do so. Parivrtta, Trikonasana. Remember, with your hand on your sacrum, which is the bony plate between the buttock flesh, you can feel a correlation between the sacrum and the breastbone. What is that correlation? Depth in the sacrum, lift in the breastbone. They go together. The more meditative depth in the sacrum, the more openness one feels from the bottom of the breastbone. A couple more breaths. Keep releasing that gluteus maximus. You can even take your hand to your back leg buttock and just make sure it's not gripping. Just give it a little squeeze or a shake to make sure it's not gripping. Huh? Good job. Calmly coming back up and walking your feet back together and back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, also known as Gajasana, the elephant. So straight away into your Adho Mukha Svanasana, padding your paws into a deeper weave, moving the pelvis to help massage through the lower back. That poor lower back, of course, really gets squashed quite a lot in our day-to-day lives. So we're looking to push energy through it like you'd flick waves through a rope. Huh? So that's something you do repeatedly. Abhyasa vairagya abhyam tanirodha. That's Patanjali speaking through me, as it were. Abhyasa, repetition. Vairagyam, with a sense of ease, or vairagya, with a sense of ease. And he says both. Abhyasa, vairagya, abhyam. Abhyam means both. Okay, well done. Coming back to hands and knees. And a little shimmy if you find it helpful. Ekapada Raja Kapotasana. We're going to take one knee to the back of one wrist, and there it's going to stay, right? Doesn't matter which knee, it goes to the back of its own wrist. And then the foot moves diagonally across the body, and you stretch back your other leg. I've mentioned before, and I'll mention again, if there's any pain in your knee, of the front leg, you lean across it, over it, as it were. And that's important. Some people will find it a lot more releasing for the psoas and groin if they come forwards and down. Others will find that it feels more meditative to lift up. So you get to choose at this point, whether you're coming down or whether you're going up. If you're up, certainly reiterative tone, meditatively drawn into across the belly. Reiterative upward, in and upward. Energetic influence. Breathing, as I said, is nasal. There may be movement left and right to massage it in. Jaw yourself, the eyes yourself, the brain yourself. Eka Pada Raja Kapotasana. Eka means one. Eka Pada means 1 foot. Raja means king. Kapota is a kind of pigeon. It's also in some traditions the word for grey, because pigeons are grey. Kapotasana, of course we know asana means seat. Easy to remember because it sounds like the thing you sit on. When you sit on a seat, you're asana. Couple more breaths. If you hear the word asana or any vowel dropped at the end of a word, you know that that word is being spoken in the Hindi language rather than the Sanskrit language. Okay, now coming either down if you were up or up if you were down, tuck your back toes back, knee forward, onto hands and knees. A little shimmy, 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 shake. Some deep breaths. Perhaps your eyes are closed. You're getting really into the energetics. The yogini is waking up. Power is coursing through her. The very powerful spontaneity, sahaja. Very powerful. The yogin should walk around in this sense of spontaneous, awake power coming through her or him or them. When you're ready, the other knee forwards to the back of the wrist, the foot moves diagonally across the body and you stretch back, of course. just as you did before. Breathing through the nose, jaw soft, eyes soft. Same thing applies if there's any problem with the knee, you lean over it. You can really lean quite far, in its direction. And you can help with problems with the knee, or even to avoid them in the first place, by massaging into the buttock and taking your time. As before, you can come down or up, or somewhere between, depending on the needs of the moment. The tummy is lightly toned. Breathing is nasal. Jaw is relaxed. Ekapada Raja Kapotasana. Coming out by coming up or down, depending on which place you're starting from. Back knee forwards. Coming back to hands and knees. A little shimmy, a little shake, a few breaths. Coming to Vajrasana, that is regular kneeling. Don't forget to put something between the heels and buttocks if there's any problems with the knees. And then a little movement on the shins and buttocks. We get this amazing massage, which moves stuck energy. In other words, samskara. So to conduce to powerful Shakti flow, Vahi. Now interlace your fingers, stretch your arms diagonally, raise your arms up. The roots of the neck should also have a sense of flow. So adjust accordingly. Breathing freely through the nose. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Take a big circle. And we're going to lay on our back. We're very close to, but not actually at, Shavasana. So if you know you'll need something for Shavasana, like a warm blanket, then make sure you've got that ready now. But we're not coming into Shavasana quite yet. We're very close, not quite. We're going to lay on our backs. We're going to stretch our arms towards our feet and hold the yoga mat. The feet quite close to the buttocks and the feet apart, not next to each other, but about hip width. We'll pull the shoulders down away from the ears, externally rotate the arms. That already feels good for the trapezius and for the rhomboids and for the pectoralis muscles. Lightly tone the tummy in a wave, in and up. And on the exhale, lift up your bottom and allow for movement left, right, up, down, tilting, bouncing, swaying. That allows you to find the pelvic floor. And if you want to come higher up, if your intuition is to go higher up, turn your arms out more, but still hold the mat and still bounce and tilt and sway to keep that lower back long. We're hydrating it, but we're also keeping a feeling that it's long. The chin and chest come towards each other in this pose. That's called Jalandhara Bandha. Coming back down, internally rotating the arms. Letting the shoulder blades move away from each other. Walk your feet a little from your buttocks. Make sure your head and neck are long by running your fingers along the back of your neck towards the back of your skull, lifting your head up, and then gently replacing it. A lot of people do find a block under their head really helps to keep the arteries that take blood up to the brain spacious. And then it's palms up, shoulder blades tucked under. And if your back is settled, or when your back feels settled, it might not yet, you'll extend your legs out so you can keep your legs bent for as long as you like. And this, of course, is Shavasana. So eyes closed, jaw soft. Sense of giving your body weight entirely. Milarepa says, throughout the 3 months of springtime, when every Tibetan plows his own field, I too, the sage, plow a field. Upon the hard ground of primordial suffering, I have put the manure of faith, the harbinger, and have watered it copiously with the fivefold nectar. I look after the ground, developing full confidence. I have sowed the seed of freedom from the error of reflective thought. Having yoked the oxen of transcendence of duality, I attached the plowshare of wisdom and, guided by the sacred scriptures, drove the plow of imperturbability. Using the whip of instant zeal, the seed is hardy and strong. The shoot of holiness will spring up. The ear will ripen in due time. You, farmer, do the husbandry of this world. I do the husbandry of eternal growth. At the time of harvest, we shall surely see increase. And when it is past, we shall surely vie in merriment. This is sung as a parable. This is my song of husbandry. Make your heart virtuous. Act to your own benefit and accumulate meritorious deeds. As you know, you're at home. Some of you basked in beautiful sunshine, and you might have plenty of time, or some more time, maybe not plenty, but maybe have a little more time to stay in Shavasana. But in case you need to, I'll give instruction for coming out, but don't feel obliged. If you're ready to come out, there's a little toe wiggling and finger wiggling, wrist movement, an ankle movement before rolling to your left. And laying as comfortably as you can on your left side with your knees up. The way you come out is really important because it sets up the attitude you'll take through into your day. Don't let yourself jump ahead of yourself. Stay with each moment. Roll when you're ready to your other side. And similarly, lay as comfortably as you can. Begin to come up slowly, staying as it were in your center, bringing yourself up from your side when you're ready. Huge appreciation. Thank you very much for coming on this Easter Tuesday. I don't know if there is such a thing as Easter Tuesday, but I've just called this Easter Tuesday anyway. So I know there's Shrove Tuesday, but that's not the day. Anyway, have a marvelous Easter Tuesday. I hope you enjoy. Of course, in the UK, it's sunny in some parts, but a bit chilly, so wrap up. And Ibiza, it looks pretty nice. Is that, are you in Ibiza at the moment? August, is that where you are? Yeah, that's pretty nice. Anyway, love you all. Be happy and well. Have a marvelous day. Thank you for your time.